Greetings, old school magic players, and welcome to the Four Horsemen.
Greetings, old school magic players. Welcome to the Four Horsemen on Saturday night, June 21st. Tonight, we have a very special Four Horsemen Old School Magic Tournament number 21 finals match. And tonight, we are joined by Brian Weissman, creator of the deck, and John Ekleberry, who are going to be commentating with us live on the live stream for Four Horsemen Tournament 21 finals. Brian and John, how are you guys doing?
I am doing excellent. Thank you, Chad. Thank you for the introduction. John, I hope you're doing the same.
Great, yeah. I'm happy to be here.
All right. This has been a very interesting Four Horsemen tournament. We have returned to the original wild, wild west of the Four Horsemen, going all the way back 3 years to June of 2022. And we are doing a very special live match tonight for our finals. Four Horsemen Old School Magic is the only old school magic format that focuses exclusively on Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Legends, and the Dark. Check us out at fourhorsemenmagic.com.
For starters, thank you for the invitation to comment tonight. I have not done any Four Horsemen coverage in a number of tournaments, and it's so cool to see this format continue to evolve and grow. I am pleased beyond measure about how popular it's become in Australia, of all places. And hopefully it gets that kind of traction across the world. This format is actually very personal to me directly because this banned and restricted list is exactly the same banned and restricted list that was in effect back when I last competed in the format. I think I played in tournament maybe 2 or 3, and it was right after I had made the suggestion that we add dual lands to the format in order to make 3 and 4 and maybe even 5 color strategies possible, because without that, you're basically stuck playing pretty much monocolor, maybe a little splash. And I was really excited to hear that this tournament was going on, that you had decided to do a throwback, a Wild West event, as you called it, because how much has the format changed in 3 years? What a difference 3 years of evolution and increased understanding have revealed in this format. Because honestly, when I last competed in the format, neither of these decks was on my radar in any way. They are really, really unique and interesting and remarkable, and it really shows you the fundamental depth of the format you've created, Chad. Well done.
Yeah, that's really insightful comments there, Brian. Yes, we've come a long way, and this original banned and restricted list was put together by my friend and cohort, Nick Breyer, and he just, threw together what he thought was the bare minimum. This original banned and restricted, only having Library, City in a Bottle, Arena of the Ancients, and Golgothian Cylex restricted. Everything else unrestricted. Moats, Strip Mine, Maze of Ith, Mishra's Factory, Mishra's Workshop, The Abyss. You name it. And the format evolved naturally, And now today, we have a curated banned and restricted that has about 10 restricted cards on it. Moats banned, Libraries banned, and basically the restricted cards you see here are banned in the modern format to balance the game. All right, guys, we are about to start this final match, and we have 2 really fantastic decks tonight. Tournament 21 has run May 16th and is wrapping up effectively tonight, finishing a day early. And for the wild, wild west of the Four Horsemen, we are returning to the original June 2022 banned and restricted list when we first launched the Four Horsemen. Only 4 restricted cards: Library of Alexandria, City in a Bottle, Arena of the Ancients, and Golgothian Cylex. The anti-cards are banned and Shahrazad is banned. Everything else is full game. And that brings us to the wild, wild west banned and restricted list you see here. We allow basic lands and dual lands. And man, have we got some fantastic decks that are going head to head tonight. feature some great prizes for our tournaments. John Ekleberry has made the custom artwork from the original 90s Magic comics that you see here. We give these out to our semifinals contestants. And for our first place winner, Ken Meyer Jr. has made a custom Guardian Beast Purple Moonlight playmat, signed and numbered. Only 100 of these are made, and we are giving one of these out to our first place winner tonight. Okay, Brian and John, let's take a look at the brackets here. We have been through the top 8, the semifinals, and tonight, Lucas Santos is facing off against Jack Clegg. We have two very powerful, top-notch Four Horsemen Wild Wild West decks. Lucas is running Underworld Prison, and Jack is running Edging Kobolds. Brian and John, let's talk about these decks. We'll start with Lucas.
Well, I'm surprised that neither of them has 4 mana drains. I'll tell you.
That's right.
Very interesting, right? And strange stuff that you would never, ever expect in the finals of an event. I can't believe I'm seeing a deck with Kobolds of Kirkeep in a final, or Ornithopter when it doesn't have Enduring Renewal in it. You associate these zero-cost creatures with just weird, degenerate stuff that came later. The fact that they're in a throwback event is really amazing. But I think looming large over the format very clearly, and you can see it forefront in both of these graphics on the left and the right side, land tax. Land tax is the villain of the format, apparently, once people really have it figured out.
That's right. Land tax is king, and we've had a lot of players, ask us, why have you restricted mana drain? Why did you restrict Sylvan Library and not land tax? Well, the basic answer is we've never had a tax edge deck win first place ever in all 21 tournaments.
Interesting. So it goes deep, but it just doesn't quite have that extra push to really to hoist the trophy. And I actually want to jump into the deck list. We don't have a ton of time, so I'd like to jump to, I guess we're doing Lucas Santos first. I love the name of this deck, by the way, Underworld Prison.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And when you look at the deck list, you can really see that it's leaning super hard into the most sticky and combative elements of this format. As everybody knows about Four Horsemen, enchantments are king in this format. There are Okay. Well, we still got some time here. Thank you. Yeah. We're just told that they're shuffling up, but hopefully they hold on long enough to give us a time to do a bit of analysis. Enchantments are king in this format. Basically, nothing interacts with them outside of 6 mana sorcery. And so it would seem that over time, the most degenerate decks are going to involve a lot of enchantments. If you look at Underworld Prison, it is an embodiment of that idea. 3 copies of Oubliette, 4 copies of Underworld Dreams. It has Moat, 3 copies, not 4 of Land Tax, a pair of Abysses. It even has a copy of Greed in it. And to go with that, it has an extremely robust and redundant life gain engine in the form of 4 unrestricted Ivory Towers, even 2 Fountains of Youth. It has Spirit Links and Divine Offerings also, a huge array of life gain to go with this basically attrition plan. It aims to just build an impenetrable fortress of life and obstacles for the opponent. And it's taken Lucas Santos all the way to the finals. You guys have actually watched this deck perform throughout the event, so I'd love to hear, John, I'd love to hear your take on this deck. How is it tending to win its games? I noticed that it has millstones in it, which is weird to me because it seems kind of antithetical from the goal of just simply putting out a bunch of Underworld Dreams and just sitting around while your opponent bleeds out. Can you explain that?
Well, I've only watched one match with this deck. The interesting thing that I will say about both decks is that they are both strategies that are getting played in regular Four Horsemen, and then they've now been ported back into the Wild West. And certainly they're souped up because they've got multiple copies of restricted cards, and but the same skeleton is there. Black-white control has been around since at least tournament 14.
Interesting.
And it's kind of becoming its own menace. And certainly Tax Edge has been around, although you'll see a slightly different spin on it here, a slightly spicier spin that has made it all the way to the finals. But I think he's really just, and also Lucas, this is an atypical deck for Lucas. I've seen him play a lot of aggro strategies. And I was really kind of excited to see him playing something completely out of his wheelhouse, and certainly to make it this far with it.
I wonder if he'll develop a taste for dedicated control after this event. I see the 4 Underworld Dreams in the dead center, and you mentioned that black-white control has become increasingly menacing in the format over time. Have you seen Underworld Dreams really kind of rising to the top as an S tier card in the format?
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, certainly, triple black cast is dedication right there. You have to kind of build your deck around it. But yeah, something that just sits there and ticks away light while you're doing your best to build a wall around yourself is pretty good.
Interesting. I'm looking over at the sideboard too, and I'm seeing kind of a lot of, well, there's, I guess, a little bit more artifact interaction. He's got a bunch of circles, just basically more sticky, pesky enchantments. Really leaning hard into that, actually, which begs the question, why no Skull of Orm in this deck?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It is a fantastic card, and being able to get back Spirit Links on creatures that go to the graveyard would be very powerful.
Yeah, among other things, right? And also, you lose an Abyss to an Enchant World, you just bring it right back again.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, I imagine that if we asked Lucas why there is no Skull of Orm, he probably would have said, you know what, my enchantments don't ever die. So they're not really going to the graveyard very often because there aren't really any ways to kill them. There's no Chaos Orb, no Disenchant, no Tranquility. So maybe he would have assumed that he wanted it, and outside of Spirit Link, he just realized, you know what, my enchantments are immortal anyway. So most of the time, the Skull of Orm is just kind of hanging out. It does have that one good interaction, and maybe it might make sense to bring in a copy of it from the sideboard over something like Artifact Possession, but maybe he just didn't need it. John, what do you think?
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, certainly it's very hard to get rid of most of these, and a lot of them, once he gets 1 or 2 of them in play, that's good enough. I do think Artifact Possession is kind of an interesting card. I've seen it played in some decks that also use Relic Barrier, so they kind of everything every turn and ding it with damage, but he doesn't seem to be a
That makes sense. Chad, I'm picking up a little bit of the background music on your mic.
Okay, let me turn it down a little bit.
A little bit, thank you. I guess these guys are waiting. Okay, since they're still waiting, let's hop over to the other deck. So we've got Jack Clegg on Tax Edge, but it's not called Tax Edge. It's called Edging Kobolds. One kind of shudders at the thought of imagining that.
Yeah. The name of this deck is hilarious. There's all kinds of connotations to the term edging. I don't know how deep we want to go into that, but
probably not necessary. The audience can use their imagination. All right. So let's talk about the deck real quick. What a strange thing. I noticed that it's basically all 4s. Every spell is 4 of. He's got 4 copies of Land Tax, which is interesting. It's an Enchant World, and we've talked in previous events, I think, about the right amount of number of Land Taxes to run. And most of the time, people are in agreement that you only really want to run 2. And so I find it very interesting that he's running 4. Why do you think that is?
Well, I certainly think that you want it early. I mean, I think in this format where there's no way to tutor for anything, I probably would run 4 as well. The thing that's interesting about this deck is that I didn't think we could get any lower to the ground than the builds Philippe and I worked on that were all 1-drops. And our strategy was just like, how many 1-drops can we fit in the deck? And we would shave some of these other cards, some of these 4-ofs down to 3-ofs to get more 1-drops. But Jack said, forget about that. I'm going to play a bunch of 0-drops.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kind of bonkers, because they don't actually do anything unless you have a Bloodlust.
I know. I was looking through the deck when I first saw this list earlier today, and instinctively you see 8 0-drop 0/2 creatures, or I guess 0/1 in the case of the Kobold, and I thought, what buffs creatures in this format? Orcish Oriflame isn't legal. There's no equipment, really. There's no Sword of Zellion or anything, because it doesn't have Sword of Zellion in it. Yeah, I guess it doesn't have Fallen Empires.
Well, there is Ashnod's Transmogrant, which we have seen in some of their decks.
But I mean, come on, that's so ridiculous. What are you gonna do? Turn a Kobold into a 1/2 with 2 cards. That's stupid, right? So there's nothing that's going to buff up creatures. I see the Bloodlust, and I'm looking around going, wow, how is this a viable strategy? How does this make sense? But you really realize that fundamentally this deck, Edging Kobolds, is quintessential land tax abuse deck.
Yeah.
It's the idea that you can present threats at 1 mana and even at 0 mana potentially that force the opponent's hand and force them to extend. And then you can use strip mines and tricks like that to trigger your land taxes and just go off to the races where you draw 4 cards every single turn and your opponent just watches you do it because they can't interact, they can't get rid of the land tax, they have to just play their hand and put their hand on the table. And this steady churn of card advantage coming from both land tax and winds of change gives the deck just all the tools that it needs to win the game via, I imagine most of the time, the land's edge. And I think it seems to me that this is particularly evident when you look at the inclusion of Tundra Wolf, that the Bloodlust is just as much a defensive card as an offensive card. Have you seen that in the games that Jack has played so far, John?
I have not. I typically, when I saw this deck being played both by Philippe and myself, I didn't do a whole lot of defending. The Wolves are almost always there to attack. I mean, certainly you could Bloodlust it and then first strike something big as a Djinn and kill it.
Yeah.
But you don't really need to be doing that when you're already playing a game where you're locking them out of playing lands. And the interesting thing about the regular Tax Edge deck is you kind of got to be careful about how you sequence your mana, because you're going to want to have both colors, and then you're going to want to have double red for the Land's Edge, but you want to be able to play all that white stuff early. Having the plateaus certainly helps, but this deck, again, is a little easier on that because it doesn't really matter what colors you have if you're playing zero-cost things early on. So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I don't know, like, the Blood Moons in the side there. I see that there's 4 of those. It's tough to bring in something that costs 3 into a shell like this where you really aren't running any 3-cost spells except for your kill spell.
Yeah.
I just don't know when I would actually bring those in. But, we might see it. We'll see.
Yeah, that said, the deck does have a substantial amount of mana in it. It's almost 40% mana, even though the average CMC of this deck has got to be below 1. I'd imagine, or right around 1 mana. So running that many mana sources does at least make those Blood Moons, as well as the Dust to Dust, a little bit more castable. But certainly if Jack's got 3 land in play instead of waiting in his hand to draw or resolve a Land's Edge, that's probably a losing proposition anyway. So it looks like we've gotten those intros out of the way. We've covered both the decks as well as we're going to do in this short amount of time. So let's hop off into the matches, don't you think?
All right. Sounds like a plan. Okay, 4 Horsemen, tournament number 21 finals. We are ready to get started. Lucas and Jack are live with us. They are playing at a pub in Brisbane.
Before we get going, I wanted to just do a quick prediction here. John, do you have a prediction about the outcome of this? They're playing a best of 3.
Best of 3? It's tough. I'm going to go with the Tax Edge deck just because I want it to win.
I know none has yet, right? It's gotten to the finals many times. We've never seen a Tax Edge winner. I have to go with the control deck. I was just looking at these 2 decks against each other, and I just don't think that the Tax Edge deck can probably do enough consistent damage. That said, he does have a lot of time. Jack's got a lot of time to accumulate a bunch of lands in his hand, and he might be able to just deal 16 damage or something out of nowhere when he drops Land's Edge, and that might be enough. But I think the deck just struggles to deal damage against a fortress of defense and life gain. But you never really know. I wish them both luck.
The life gain is going to be the real crux, because I feel like with the Land's Edge deck, you can kill somebody with 20 life fairly easily, but if they gain really any amount, it starts to get out of your reach quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm going to predict a 2-1 victory for the black-white control deck.
I knew you would.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the tournament finals for tournament number 21 of 4 Horsemen, coming to you from the Brewdog Pub somewhere in Australia. I hope I remember that correctly. I'm Brian Weissman. I'm here today with John Ekleberry, and we are going to be watching an incredible matchup in what has been dubbed the Wild West tournament for 4 Horsemen, a throwback nostalgia event going all the way back 3 years ago, nearly when the tournament was brand new, to see how much has it changed and evolved. What have people learned about this format in the last 3 years? And what would they do? What would they build if they had the old restricted list? I'm very, very excited to watch these decks kick off. John, what kind of hands are these players looking to have at the beginning?
Well, certainly the tax edge guy is going to land tax right off the bat. I think the black-white player has a little more leeway to keep just about anything he draws. I mean, the deck's pretty consistent, although I guess both are pretty consistent with lots of 4-0s, so they're going to see pretty homogenous hands. I'm shocked and excited that there's not like a Blue Robots deck at this table or two Blue Robots decks playing against each other in these finals, because that's what I expected when we went back to the Wild Wild West.
Totally reasonable, right? It really seemed like the format was defined by Blue Robots at the beginning. Every deck had 4 workshops in it and 4 Triskelions and 4 Suchi, and just was totally abusing that alongside the unrestricted mana drain and everything that conferred. And the fact that we've got 2, I would definitely just call these rogue strategies, and not even traditional tax edge with a bunch of weird 0-cost cards and a black-white fortress deck when you have access to all of those old tools. So really remarkable. No Sylvans in the finals either, no mana drains. And well, I guess the Library of Alexandria is looming large. You can see both players here drawing an initial 7. They both opted to mulligan. I don't know who's going first, and that's Lucas on the bottom running black-white and Jack on the top running red-white. Looks like Jack is happy with his hand as well as Lucas. So we're going to see the start for the game. Are we going to be seeing turn 1 tax? Kind of the defining card.
Well, for Lucas has to have a turn 1 Ivory Tower. That is the only way he has a chance to beat Jack. You know, looking at those 2 decks, he has to gain life out of the gate, or Jack's strategy will be, overwhelming. And here he goes. Ivory Tower with a swamp.
Yeah, he is punished a bit, though, by the mulligan here. It definitely does not provide as much ammo. But now land tax comes down, and essentially, Lucas has all the time in the world, right? He doesn't need to play land. He can just gain a life here, untap, pass, game 2, game 3, game 3. He's probably happy to just keep discarding forever also.
That's right.
And at a certain point, his life total will outstrip the hand size potential of his opponent. His opponent literally won't be able to kill him.
That's right.
Of course, the correct answer is to just pass. You notice there's a really interesting thing going on here, which is, I think, a necessary outgrowth of some of the fundamental flaws in playing webcam Magic. It's just that accounting, bookkeeping, auditing your opponent's hand size and so on. Oh, look, a Divine Offering for the Ivory Tower. Of course, every good deck is running 3 to 4 copies of this card main deck because of how powerful the artifacts are. So that's going to change the dynamic of the game immediately. And it was interesting, he was able to cast that Divine Offering with the strip mine. John, how does that affect the interplay around the land tax issue?
Well, he could certainly, if he really wanted to, he could strip one of his own lands to get back down, below him. But I think he's going to wait and see what the other guy does, because he doesn't want to sit on 1, right? He wants to be able to play something. So he'll probably play another land here, and maybe play a Witches if he has it, or what other 2-cost stuff does he have? Does he have another 2-cost option?
I'm not sure. He's not running Felwar Stone, which is really interesting. I remember Felwar Stone being sort of considered the mox of the format, that if you weren't running Felwar Stone, you were kind of just doing it wrong, right? It's the only good accelerator in the format, and yet I wouldn't expect a Felwar Stone in the red-white deck, but the black-white control deck not running Felwar Stone is certainly interesting.
It's surprising, and it's also a card that's very good against the red-white deck, so it would be nice for him to have, but he doesn't have access to it.
So you see him thinking for a while. He plays a Mishra's Factory and drops down what should be a pretty irrelevant millstone. I don't imagine that he's going to have much time to really mill for a while as he gets established here. So during upkeep, I'm watching right here. There was an old trick you used to be able to do, actually, with the timing of strip mine and land tax, because of the resolution speed of things, that basically land tax checked on activation and not on resolution. So you could activate land tax, then sacrifice strip mine, and the strip mine, I'm trying to think of the order of how this worked. Maybe you strip mine and activate land tax in response. Anyway, there was a timing window involving strip mine that you could basically, oh, that's right, the strip mine would be in effect. So it would have sacrificed and removed itself from play, but it hasn't destroyed your opponent's land yet. So the land tax would resolve, and you'd be able to go get land, and then the strip mine would resolve and kill their land, which is kind of naughty. And I didn't see that happen.
That is
in this
kind of
match.
naughty.
Yeah. So nothing happened. All right. So this is really interesting. They're now playing draw go. There's these 2 0-drop creatures in play and a land tax on one side of the table. And I imagine next turn he's got 7 cards in hand. So Lucas is going to face a decision here. 2 land taxes. So in his seat, John, do you just start discarding into the graveyard, or do you play that second land and start milling?
That's
thinking about it.
Yeah,
he's very uncomfortable.
Good. I mean, I don't think that millstone's going to actually factor into any kind of victory in this game. So I don't know how important it is to start activating it, but nothing else is happening. So, maybe. I mean, I'm just in my head as kind of a red-white aggro player. I'm just like dying for a bone splitter here. Obviously, we don't have that in this format, but
yeah, exactly.
I want something to pump those little guys. So
we made fun of Ashnod's Transmogrant, but honestly, a clock here would really matter, right? The difference between doing 0 and 1 is so massive. Okay, another 0 mana artifact comes down. This card is good because of land tax meta for sure. The idea that you can just play a card from your hand and not trigger land tax without having to discard is just a benefit in and of itself, even though the life gain is probably inconsequential.
Yeah.
And given the fact that he discarded a plains earlier, I imagine Lucas is willing to play this game for a long time.
Yes, he has the patience to do it. He's made it all the way through top 16 group matches, top 8. He knows that he has to be patient with this deck, and he knows he has to do 2 things. He has to have Ivory Tower, and he has to get to triple black at some point in this match because of Underworld Dreams.
So strange. It's so strange to see where this goes. All right, a Kumbaj Witches goes to the graveyard. It's only big enough to kill the Kobold. He's definitely made an emphatic statement that he is not going to let Jack land tax. So the question is, at what point in time does Jack face the decision of either discarding or playing land, and which path does he take? Does he play a second land?
He has to.
His deck does anything if he doesn't play a second land.
Exactly. He can't even cast anything, right? What
well,
are you going to do?
He can get Tundra Wolves. Right now, Jack is waiting for Tundra Wolves, and Lucas is waiting for his second Ivory Tower.
Yeah, it's so funny. What a weird format, honestly, this has turned into. I think, gentlemen, I have to just say it. I think I preferred the way this format looked 3 years ago. At least it's extra interesting. If you remember, I got to, I think it was the semifinals.
No, you made it to the finals. Yeah, you made it to the finals. Matt Mesa ended up winning in the finals, but yeah, you were right there in second place runner-up.
Are we sure about that? I thought I lost in the semis. But either way, and I played I basically played a band-colored deck that abused what I thought were the strongest cards in the format, which was Ivory Towers, Sylvan Library, and Mana Drain. And then I was running Old Men of the Sea as my creatures, I think. But I mean, really, Mirror Universe. My main kill card was Mirror Universe because
right.
I was abusing the mana burn rules. Actually, I was curious about that. Does this tournament also have the old mana burn rules, or did you keep the regular ones intact?
Good question.
We're currently using modern rules plus mana burn. Mana burn is the only add-on.
Interesting. Okay, so because of the modern rules, of course, the whole city mirror trick doesn't work.
Right.
In this format, and that's a huge difference because getting your opponent down to 1 with a blue, white, green deck is very different from killing them.
It was too broken. It was too broken, and like you pointed out, Brian, there's been such extensive analysis on the modern rules, and ultimately, as much as we wanted to experience what it was like to play Magic in 93, 94, we opted to go for the modern rules because it's what everyone knows, and it was the most fair and balanced in the end.
Yeah, it leads to just fewer feel bad moments. He's discarding a land text. By the way, this match so far is so demonstrative of the fundamental design flaw with the card land tax. Oh, look.
There it is.
A Tundra Wolf has arrived. And unfortunately, Lucas does not have a plains or scrubland in play. That presents a big problem. If he had that, he's got a 1-mana answer.
Yeah.
In the form of Spirit Link.
He's on a 20-turn clock now.
4 wolves. But now what, right? He's on a 22 turn. Wait, he's at 17 currently, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's at 17. That's right. So he's
17 turn clock.
That's right. And Jack no longer has to play his second land for the Bloodlust, although he could. Lucas has to get an Ivory Tower here, or he's going to have to play into land tax, and that will be a disaster.
It will very likely be a disaster because I imagine that Jack already has at least one copy of Land's Edge in hand. At that point, he's going to scoop up 6 land to thin, and he'll do it again, and he'll play his third land and cast Land's Edge and deal probably, I'd imagine, 18 to 20 damage. Yep, down comes the plains. It's weird. It's weird when a Thunderwolf is a 5-alarm fire, but that's clearly the case. And this is so impactful in so many different ways. So what are the implications of this second land coming into play, John? How does this change the stalemate?
Well, I think that we'll see another land come down on the other side now so that he can start doing things like playing Bloodlust and playing some of his other cards. He's going to fish for quite a few lands here, though, right? Like,
I don't think so. He's got 7 cards. He's only going to get 1 or 2 lands right now, and he'll get prepared for the double land tax when he's ready to execute.
Yeah, that's true, because he can't play the Land's Edge this turn, so there's no reason to take too many extra cards that he'll have to discard.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you want to thin, right? That's the main consideration. If he values the thinning, but it appears that he was not interested in doing much thinning at all. So with 2 mana, this unlocks so many spells. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play a second land here and either Bloodlust or Divine Offering something. If you were to Divine Offering, what do you choose, the Fountain of Youth or the Millstone?
I think I'd get rid of that Fountain of Youth.
All right.
Which is a hilarious thing to say because it's like such a sad card. But
it is such a sad card, but you're right. It does solve the Thunderwolf.
Right? Like it.
Guys, look at what just happened here. Jack spirit linked his own spirit linked wolf.
This is honestly absurd. Totally absurd. This is the natural evolution of a format. A double spirit linked Thunderwolf. It's come all the way around. A long time ago, these looked like pro decks played by pro players. Now it's like 2 guys playing with Antiquities and Legends on their first day playing Magic. I have 3 0-drops in play. You're dead.
Yeah, he gains a life and he loses a life, so he nets nothing, but Lucas takes 1 damage.
Exactly.
It's hilarious. But now he can actually start milling, and he can activate either Millstone or Fountain of Youth. He can offset the life loss with the Fountain of Youth, or he can mill.
Yep. He's got the Thunderwolf on lock. I think he's probably going to Millstone. It's got to be the right answer.
The risk here is he's going to take a big damage hit. He'll take a big 5 damage hit from Bloodlust. Ooh, there's 1 in the graveyard. And that'll get him into Land's Edge, range. So he's got to be weary of that.
So it's really interesting, right? The stalemate for the land tax was finally broken, and it literally is still negative card advantage for Jack. Because he invested two cards in casting 2 land taxes that netted him a grand total of 1 plains. All right, there it goes. That answers the question. He views the Millstone as a higher threat. And that's 3 of his 4 Divine Offerings gone now. We know that there's only 1 left because we saw one just get milled.
Yeah.
So an Ivory Tower would be likely to stick.
That's right.
And I don't know if he hits a tower pretty soon here. I have no idea how Jack wins the game.
That's right.
It seems like his opponent's going to quickly get up to a life total higher than the number of lands left remaining in Jack's deck. All right, 1 land.
Is that it?
And land tax of his own.
Land tax. Oh, wow, look at this.
Unlikely to change anything.
Yeah, he really wanted an Ivory Tower there, not a land tax.
And what's interesting, too, is both of these guys have a copy of Feldon's Cane as well. So we could be in for a very, very, very long first game.
Oh, boy.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Kobolds brawling.
I don't think so. I think Jack's going to come into a Bloodlust. There it is.
Yeah, but it's like, who cares? It's just not enough.
Well, but now he can double land tax. If Lucas ever gets to his 3rd land, then Jack will get 6 lands out of his deck, and it will be game over.
I think the chances of that happening are approximately 0. Lucas, you saw how patient Lucas was before in being unwilling to play a second line. He needed to play the plains because he needed to activate all the white spells in his deck because he didn't have a scrub land. So that was the only land I imagine he will play the rest of this game.
Yeah.
When there's a land stalemate. Strip mines can change it though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if Jack does draw into another strip mine, we've only seen him play one. He can kill his own mountain and get 6 lands, but then he doesn't have 3 land for at least a little while. So it's kind of a weird, awkward place.
Yes.
It would be catastrophic for Lucas to play a 3rd land. And I don't imagine he will do that.
There it is. He can strip that plains, and now
he kills his own land.
This is what John was talking about.
The ridiculous of the format continues.
It's very strategic, though. This is a super strategic move on the part of Lucas. It's
incredible, right? It's a totally different version of Magic right now.
Yeah. Well, Lucas knows, ultimately, like I said earlier, he has to do 2 things. Number 1, he has to have Avid Tower to gain life to stave off Land's Edge. And number 2, he has to have triple black or he can't not kill Jack.
Yeah, well, he can fetch up a couple of swamps right now. And I'm sure that he's probably got at least 1 Underworld Dreams, maybe even likely 2 in his hand. So that might be the one thing he could do to break the stalemate, but he needs to gain life first. He cannot do that at 13.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to wait to get an Ivory Tower at least, or really ride that Fountain of Youth for quite a while to get up to the point where he can't just get one shot by Land's Edge.
Right. It's so fun to see these guys playing live and in person. You know, it's really great.
All right. So with that, his hand, he picked up 3 swamps. His hand size currently says 7, but I imagine it's closer to 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like playing the swamp.
No.
I really, really don't like that.
He needs a scrub land there.
Yeah, he has to be patient and wait to draw a scrub land. You can't play a swamp there.
I agree.
Because now he has no access to white mana at all.
Ever. That's right.
Effectively cutting himself off from white mana. Yeah, why? I mean, I get that he wants to play Underworld Dreams, but it seems to me that he will lose the game instantly if he plays a 3rd swamp here to cast Underworld Dreams.
That's right.
His opponent's going to 100% kill him.
Yeah.
But on the bright side, it will save us like a 2-hour game.
Well, if he can come into a Kumbaj Witches here, he does have 2 Kumbaj Witches, double black, 1/3. That could save him.
Yeah, he discarded 1 earlier.
Yes,
that's right. Things have gone horribly awry when your salvation is a Kumbaj Witches.
Well, what's interesting, Brian, is over the last few years, Kumbaj Witches have really risen to the top, like the cream of the crop. The Kumbaj Witches have been proven to be absolute powerhouses. They block Mistress Factories, Curd Apes, Argothian Pixies, and they deal damage for only 2 black. They are the Prodigal Sorcerer plus a blocker of 4 Horsemen. Yeah, they're amazing. I actually started playing with Kumbaj Witches a bunch in the 7-point old school singleton format. Yeah. I played in one event. I won an event with a blue-white deck, and then I started thinking about it a little bit more based on the way the restricted or the points list was, and I pivoted to building a black-red deck. And without any doubt, the Kumbaj Witches are a huge all-star in that deck. They're so good every time you draw them. Yeah. When you look at Arabian Nights and you think about Richard Garfield's design strategies behind it, like the Kumbaj Witches were like the pivotal card of all those aggro Arabian Nights cards. Yep. They're so overstated, honestly. Divine Offering, the last one on the Fountain of Youth. So now all the Divine Offering are gone. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Yeah, it's taking a huge risk. So at this point, if Lucas has been sandbagging a tower, he's got a cane. I don't imagine he's going to use that because he wants to. Right now, the ratio of Ivory Towers in the deck outweighs the ratio of basically the starting configuration. He's more likely to draw them. So I think it would be a big mistake to crack that right now. What do you think about that, John? Oh, a 3rd land comes down.
Do they both have a cane in their main board?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. They're both running it. All right, 15 to 30. He has played a 3rd land, which is going to allow his opponent to land tax. He must have done that in order to play Land's Edge, right? Surely.
Yes, that's the only reason to do it. But we don't see it coming down here. That's a shocker.
He's got the most damage he could do right now is 12. So his opponent, what on earth?
Yeah, I would not have made that play if I were Jack, because now...
I'm looking over at the deck list. I can't see any reason why you'd want to do that.
No, that is a big play error.
Well, he could do 14, and then if he draws the land, he could do 16. But I don't know. I don't like it. I think both of them. And you see this happen in these kinds of games where they kind of get jittery and want to do something, right? They get tired of the draw go, and they want to see movement on the board, but you can't do that. You have to hold back.
I agree. The ultimate punish here would be scrubland into Underworld Dreams.
Right, which is what Lucas wants to do. Now, maybe Jack is doing this because he has a Bloodlust in hand, and maybe he's thinking I can get in with a 5-point hit on the wolves and then Land's Edge for the rest.
Well, that would have been his last turn then. If he has Land's Edge and Bloodlust and 5 basic land in his hand, if he has that exact range, he would have attacked last turn and Bloodlusted in order to deal the 5 right, or to deal the 4 right away, because he can't do it through the Thunderwolves, and then he would play the Land's Edge and try to win. But he didn't Bloodlust last turn, so that's not even a possibility.
Yeah, so I cannot imagine why Jack would have played this third land.
He didn't want to discard, apparently.
Bring in the Land's Edge that he would have to have in his hand, so that's one less shock that he has available to him.
Yeah, so he plays Strip Mine. Down comes Oubliette. The tyranny of the wolf has ended.
The wolf, the reign of the wolf is over. The double spirit-linked wolf.
The good news is that the wolf, if the wolf ever gets out of prison, it's only phased out. It will still have the spirit links on it.
That's true. But I mean, how often do you see an Oubliette 3-for-1 somebody? It's pretty fun.
Yeah, this creature is triple enchanted at this point in 4 Horsemen. Okay, what was that? What happened there?
Maze of Ith and Swamp were discarded at the end of the turn, which is also a very interesting decision. I was looking at the Mazes of Ith that are in Lucas's deck. He has a pair of them, and they are very good against Bloodlust too. It just makes me favor the black-white deck even more. If you get a Maze of Ith down, if you can somehow squeeze it in the land tax wars, the power of the card is totally nuts. It hoses all of the Bloodlust, basically.
That's a really good point. Yeah, so Lucas has a lot of outs here. I mean, Jack's life on his phone is showing 15, but Lucas is at 13.
Yep. And now he strip mines his own swamp here to drop back down to 2. Next turn, he can play another swamp and drop another Underworld Dreams.
Oh, that's a good move on the part of Lucas.
Yeah, having that strip mine out there is really good insurance. It just allows you so much more leverage in. There it goes. Perfect play. So now he's managed to get a triple black spell into play because his opponent played a third land.
Big mistake.
Why on earth did you do that?
Good question.
No, this is a massive hose against the 4 copies of Winds of Change.
Yeah.
In Jack's deck, if he casts Winds of Change, he's going to take 6 or 7 damage from it.
Yeah. Brian, remember early in our tournament 1, 2, 3, 4, here's the Land's Edge, but is it enough?
2. I see. But he played that third land. And so that doesn't change anything.
He's strip mining his own land.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, Brian, is remember earlier, you expressed some frustration. You're like, in the early days of 4 Horsemen, there were a lot of casual players and they weren't making great plays. You see much more strategic thought here, but I think we can all agree that third land drop on the part of Jack was a huge play error.
Could be very decisive, but we'll see where this goes. It's gotten a lot more interesting, and what effectively, he only needs to get him down to, let's look at this right now. I don't know how many cards are currently in Jack's hand. Let's assume that it's 7. So the maximum amount of damage that he can inflict in a turn if he plays a third land is 7 from hand in the form of a Chain Lightning and a Bloodlust. That's 7 damage. And an additional 10 more damage in basic land, so he can deal 17. That's the magic number right here. If Lucas is able to get above 17, he can get out of range and probably inevitably win the game at the Underworld Dreams, but he does need an Ivory Tower.
Well, he's got 3 more, and Jack is out of Divine Offerings. Another reason why I don't know if I would have used that Divine Offering on that Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, it seems a little bit decadent to me, given the fact, and now that he's going to be able to thin a bunch of land, he's already thinned quite a few, and that the concentration of Ivory Towers in the deck is going up and up and up every time he does this. I would imagine he has something around a 10% chance of drawing an Ivory Tower every draw step now.
Yeah.
And he has the luxury of playing multiple lands, but we'll see how long can Jack fade the Ivory Tower. He does have potentially a win in exactly the range that I described. He doesn't need to deal 17. I guess he could be one land short in that scenario, but he needs to play one land from hand, and then he needs to cast Chain Lightning and Bloodlust, which leaves him, I guess, with 8 more damage. So it actually is exactly 15.
Yeah, and if I were Lucas here, if he
boom,
there it is.
Oh. No divine offering end of turn. We know that that's going to happen. So the game has to end this turn.
Yes.
If he's able to untap and play 3 lands, and he can actually deal a little bit of damage to him too here, rather than discarding.
And Lucas has one more Maze of Ith. If he can find a way to dig into that second Maze of Ith and put it into play, he would secure the game.
Yeah, and you notice something interesting there. He did not even play a second land. Why did he not play a second land, John?
I don't know. He could have. He certainly could have. Maybe he wants to tax again for whatever reason to thin his deck more and keep his hand count up. But already got 7 cards in his hand.
He just activated his cane.
Yeah, he did. It looks like he just wants to. He's nearly out of basic lands, so he's just going to churn through the basic lands. So the reason is that he's winning the land tax war right now. He actually has a way to win the game.
Yeah.
Every turn he can deal 9 damage to his opponent here through the land tax or through the Land's Edge. Most people who play Land's Edge forget that it's an enchant world. It's a symmetric effect. Your opponent can do it right back to you.
That's right.
And even though he gained a little bit of life off that Thunderwolf, his life total is going to come down in huge chunks here. This game's going to be over in basically, it depends on how many extra lands he has in hand. That's going to be
Felton's Cane, though, he would have run out of basics in his deck to be able to do that.
Yeah, I just don't know how many are in his hand, but he's going to be able to deal 6 from land tax every single turn. So that's one reason to keep one land in play, to leverage his own land tax. The other reason, too, is that if he plays the second land and Jack draws into a strip mine, he could strip mine his own land, go down to 1 land, activate triple land tax to pull up 9 lands and immediately win the game.
So Lucas just gains 5 life here.
These guys strip mine themselves this game. Has it happened, 4 or 5 times already?
Yeah, double Ivory Tower. This is kind of what I expected would happen. So I don't honestly know how Jack can win from this point. It seems basically impossible.
Yes, I think you're right. The fact that he utilized his last divine offering on that Fountain of Youth has sealed his fate. I think Lucas will eventually emerge victorious now.
Yeah, I think it was that third land, the critical third land. It gave Lucas a window to put a finisher into play and to still kind of dance around the 3 opposing land taxes with the strip mine. So life totals, you can see, are rapidly moving in the other direction.
Yeah, everybody's discarding lands and dealing damage. Each of them have discarded lands. Lucas is not keeping the proper track on his dice of his life. But Jack is on the phone.
Yeah,
there.
you can just see the number on the left side. So we've got 11 to 16, but of course, land tax resolving before 2 towers trigger is going to bring his hand size up to 10.
Right.
And he's going to then gain 6 life for every card in his hand.
Brutal. Brutal.
Yeah.
But let's give a nod to let's give a nod to Lucas here for his extremely patient and strategic play.
10, 6, 12 life gain during upkeep. Massive, massive jump in life total gain. 21, I guess he gained 10. Is he correcting him on that? All right, he draws up to, I guess, 11 cards in hand. I don't know if the bookkeeping is keeping exact track of how many cards they're ending their turn with. But either way, it's just an onslaught in both directions. Him gaining life and him dealing continuous damage through the Land's Edge.
Yeah. Brian, you don't know this, but Lucas has made it into the semifinals and finals probably 6 or 7 times. And Lucas, to his credit, Lucas found us on YouTube, and Lucas recruited all 15 of the Aussie players.
That's so awesome. It's so cool to see kind of the person who's essentially almost the founder of the format in Australia bring that many people on board, and that it continues to flourish while he is incredibly successful at it. And it looks like this is the end. Really, really, really well played by Lucas. We've got a few more minutes before game 2 begins. Let's talk about the sideboard. You are Jack right now, and you're looking over at your sideboard after how that first game went, what are you thinking and what are you putting in? What are you taking out?
Okay.
It's funny, I kind of always feel like Felden's Cane is more or less a do-nothing card in most matches, but if he hadn't had it in that match, there wouldn't have been enough basics in his deck to kill his opponent with. Certainly, he would have killed him eventually with the Underworld Dreams, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And I bring that up because you see 2 more Felden's Canes in his sideboard here, but I really don't think that you're going to want 3 of that effect. But maybe if you're going to sit there and draw go forever. I don't know. What do you think, Chad?
Well, I think that the Artifact Blast and the Dust to Dust are what's drawing my eye, first of all. Obviously, the Active Volcanoes and the Blood Moons are probably not going to be top of mind for Jack, but I'm eyeballing that Dust to Dust and Artifact Blast. If he can Artifact Blast for 1 mana and counter the Ivory Tower, he can win the game.
Artifact Blast is fine, I guess, at 1. I don't love the Dust to Dust at 3. Like, by the time you've played your 3rd land, if you're not already killing them, I feel like this deck isn't doing what it wants to be doing.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the utility of the Dust to Dust. I think that he might still find room for it because even with the constraints around it, you don't really know how the game's going to go. It may be possible that neither of these guys draw land tax early. That's a reasonable possibility. And if that's the case, they could put 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands into play because there's nothing better to do with it. And if that is the case, then the Dust to Dust is a hell of a lot better than something like Spirit Link nearly all the time. So if I'm sitting in Jack's seat right here, I am 100% putting in 4 Artifact Blast. That is the most interactive and important card that he has in the matchup right now because he loses to Ivory Tower. He cannot let Ivory Tower stay out there. Dust to Dust at least gives him a little bit more reach against that. And the question comes down to whether or not the Feldon's Canes are better than something like additional copies of Spirit Link. He's looked at Lucas's deck list, and we know if looking at Lucas's deck list, if we want to jump over to that, if you look at Lucas's deck list, how many creatures is he playing? He has 2 Kumbaj Witches. Now, if your opponent has 2 Kumbaj Witches, how many Spirit Links are good against 2 Kumbaj Witches? I think the answer is somewhere between maybe 1 and 0. So he's not going to be liking Spirit Links at all in the matchup. The only real use for them is to gain a little bit of life himself in a pinch. He can throw it on a wolf, or he can throw it on a freaking ornithopter and bloodlust it twice or something.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm actually saying that about a tournament final.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Either way, it's just kind of one of the things about this format, and I've seen this over and over and over again in the sideboards of lots of competitors. It's pretty easy to find 5, 6 cards for your sideboard that work well. Beyond that, you're kind of reaching for a lot of stuff, and you're forced to play with, for example, 4 copies of Blood Moon. Now, Blood Moon's not bad. He did see Maze of Ith discarded. He has seen 4 Scrublands, but Blood Moon could screw him too.
Yeah.
By turning his plateaus and his strip mines into mountains. And if he's got mountains and more mountains instead of strip mines and plateaus, a lot of his own flexibility is diminished too. Those strip mines are really important for playing the land tax game, and if you shut them off, you might wind up screwing yourself. So I don't think it's an automatic shoo-in. Let's look over real quick at Lucas's deck before game 2 and talk about what he might be sideboarding. Guys, what do you think?
So he has Thomas Coffin, the Abyss. What is that artifact card? I can't remember with the.
It's Artifact Possession. It's
Artifact
when the artifact is tapped, I believe they take 2 damage.
Right. Triskelions.
Like psychic venom for artifacts.
Okay, that's right. Triskelion, COP artifacts, the Greater Realm of Preservations, a moat, City in a Bottle, and that is an extra John Ekleberry custom. Is that an oubliette down there, John? What is that one?
Yeah, it's an oubliette.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering what that card is.
Yeah.
So what do you?
Greater Realms look, I don't know, kind of attractive, but you have to have extra mana to activate them. I mean, they can stop. I guess they can't stop damage from an ornithopter that's bloodlusted.
Yeah, I mean, it really just it does come down kind of to what's most effective against the deck. I would imagine that when it comes examining what he's likely to take out, I don't imagine that greed is particularly good in this matchup. I think that he's unlikely to get 4 mana in any type of comfortable position to play greed. And if he does try to do that, he's really risking getting blown up by land tax, Land's Edge, because he's going to take 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 damage or something and likely just put himself in a needlessly vulnerable spot. I don't think that Dust to Dust is likely to stay in the deck. He's got 2 copies of that as well as 4 copies of Divine Offering. And his opponent doesn't even have Mishra's Factories in it. So there isn't really a lot of room for artifact removal. So I think actually Lucas has quite a bit of stuff that he could bring in. I think Greater Realm of Preservation, while it is expensive in mana, is better than a lot of his enchantments.
Yeah.
Well, how good is Abyss against this deck? You can stop, there's 4 Wolves and there's 4 0-mana Kobolds that do nothing. You want to use 2 Abyss to defend against 4 1/1s? Probably not. Mode is probably a better all-purpose catch-all there.
Right.
Abyss is better against it. Triskelion might be better, although Triskelion does cost 6. There's lots of interesting choices here. So I think it's more really about nailing down what is he likely to take out of the deck. So what do you think he wants to pull out?
I cannot ever see Lucas getting to 4 mana in this game.
Really?
I just can't.
What if no player? What happens then if no player draws land tax? That's a reasonable possibility. What does the game look like?
Well, Lucas has 3 land tax and Jack has 4. So eventually, this whole game pivots around land tax and Ivory Tower.
It does. I'm just saying, what does the game look like when neither player draws an early land tax? Do they play out their hands? Do we see 3, 4, 5, 6 mana come into play?
I think they
Or
will.
do they-
I
do
think
they
they would
just play the
mulligan.
land tax game by default, even if it's not in play.
I think they would mulligan, Brian. I think Lucas is going to mulligan to try to have land tax and Ivory Tower in his open hand, and he's going to try to have a scrub land and a swamp. I think he's hell-bent on, aggressively mulligan, which is something that you yourself have, focused on in your strategies.
For sure, although I think I don't tend to mulligan as aggressively as most people do. You're at least people that are really, really familiar with the format. In fact, that's one of the best things, one of the biggest payoffs you get from really grinding and testing a format is you get a very good understanding of how to mulligan the format. And that does take a lot of time. It's learning how to mulligan correctly probably is almost more important now in modern Magic, modern constructed Magic, than how you play the decks. The decks kind of play themselves, but mulliganing to know exactly which cards you need to get in a particular matchup is so much of the skill.
Yeah.
So I think your point is extremely valid. I could imagine Lucas mulliganing 2, 3 times even in an effort to get one of those key cards, because honestly, who cares if you start with 4 cards? If you start with 4 cards, you're actually better at playing the land tax game anyway. It's almost like it's a benefit because the pressure of having to discard is off your shoulders, and your opponent is the one who's in an uncomfortable position because he's got a full grip and he doesn't want to play an extra land. So it can sometimes even be this kind of weird benefit. And it's really another thing that's so different about this era back in the 90s when it was an actual format. Granted, you had alpha in there versus now. Mulligans were completely different.
Right.
So you couldn't do things like that.
That's
you could
right.
not mulligan repeatedly to try to sculpt a perfect hand.
Yeah,
anyway, I think we've taken
that's
up
a good
enough
point.
time. Let's get back to the action for game 2. All right, we are back for game 2 of the Tournament 21 4 Horsemen Finals. The Wild West showdown continues. And honestly, I've got to say so far, kind of unfolding the way that I expected. A little bit of early pressure from the red-white deck. It kind of playing its game, getting land tax into play, but basically the black-white deck just has all the tools that it needs to stymie and blunt all that early aggression and damage, and inevitability set in. And it really, really came down to a pivotal moment involving a 3rd land being played from the red-white deck, which gave the black-white deck the opportunity to deploy a clock, an Underworld Dreams that completely changed the texture of the game. From that point onward, it was basically academic. You can see on the side of the red-white deck, he's already mulliganing. I don't know. Oh, they're both mulliganing. So, Chad, good call on that. This is
right.
shaped up exactly as you expected. Both
Yes.
players aggressively mulliganing. So, let's reiterate for the audience and for people who may have joined us right away. What are they mulliganing for? Why the aggressive mulliganing?
Well, I think Lucas, like I said earlier, Lucas's entire deck strategy pivots on a couple of key requirements. Number 1, he has to have a land tax and an Ivory Tower. And number 2, he has to eventually get to triple black so he can play Underworld Dreams, or he loses. That's it.
A fair analysis. So we'll see what these new hands yield. You'll notice that they use a little die rolling system in 6 piles in order to do the shuffling. And it's funny because this system was clearly developed to add a whole layer of integrity to webcam magic. And
Yes.
yet they're still doing it in person, which I find very endearing.
Yes, that's right.
Certainly just be cutting or shuffling each other's decks, but they really are playing like they're playing a webcam match, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly. With all of the monitoring, and that's really awesome. It's super awesome for the sake of the viewing audience, because knowing how many cards in the opponent's hands at all times is good for the audience. It's good for the commentators too.
Yeah.
All right, who's going first here is the question. That's actually something we did not establish. Jack lost the last game. He can go first. But does he want to? Is it better to go first or second in this matchup?
Well, he's double mulliganing, and I would go second if I were Jack.
Interesting. Well, he has to choose. He has to decide before he looks at each hand, right? You make that determination before you begin to resolve mulligans, because it can really affect your choice about whether or not you want that extra card.
Mm-hmm.
You have to mulligan that down to 5. That extra card gets a lot more valuable than the tempo. But
Yeah.
I would say that in the land tax matchup, you generally always want to go first, because you want to be the first guy to deploy land tax. That makes your hand smaller, so you can play the land tax game for a little bit longer.
But you also may want the extra draw if you know that you can dig for that one extra card to try and get your land tax. And Jack has 8 cards that cost 0. So I think it is in Jack's best interest to go second.
That's a very valid point. The 0 drops do affect that, but we'll see what happens. You notice that a second beer has joined the table as well.
Yes.
Things are getting serious. It's going to be 1 beer per game, so hopefully he gets to game 3. Down comes turn 1 Ivory Tower, and after only 1 mulligan. But he does have 4 cards in hand. Couldn't really ask for a better draw, right? Unless it was Scrubland Tower.
Yes, Scrubland Tower would be the only better move there. So now he can sit back and relax and just save cards and gain life.
Yeah, practically a mirror image of the first game, almost, actually. Just a repeat, actually, or I should say, not mirror image, but an instant replay of the way that the last game went.
Yeah.
Lucas passes back automatically.
And did you notice that it went as I expected? Jack went second.
Yep. No 0 drops have come down. They're not really likely to affect anything anyway. So 1 life point gained.
As much as I like seeing the Kobolds, and it's kind of fun because they're spicy and nobody's really played them in this format, I think they were a huge liability game 1, because if those 0 drops had been 1/1 creatures,
yeah, there are
game 1, I think he would have had the potential to outrace and win that first game.
I do agree with you, because they probably would have dealt 6 or 7 damage by the time the game got really underway. It would have really put the pressure. Once he was able to get rid of that first tower, it would have put a ton of pressure on Lucas. Lucas would not have had all the time and luxury to just wait to get exactly the hand that he needed with all of the strip mines to get the Underworld Dreams onto the table.
That's a good point. And we've seen cards like Miracle Worker and a few other 1-drops that only cost 1 white or 1 red make the difference. But, Jack was really leaning into Kobolds. He wanted... he and I played some test games with an early version of this deck, and he wanted to find a way to make Kobolds work just out of the spiciness of it. And, now we're seeing here, maybe that's, maybe 4 Miracle Workers would have been a better move.
It does seem to be more conducive to the overall theme of the deck, which is just put out 1 land and then force your opponent to let you land tax. And it's way easier to do that with a thing that has power on it.
Right. Meanwhile, Lucas is now up to 26 life, discarding a John Ekleberry Hellraiser special. That is a Hellraiser Abyss.
Yeah, that's awesome looking. What a cool altar. So,
yeah.
John, did you illustrate that?
No. It's just an image. It's a still from the movie. I printed up some of those for the group to.
I see. Okay, so it's effectively a proxy. I was going to say that is a baller. That's an awesome altar. That's an altar. We know this is not a cheap card.
No, Abyss is crazy expensive. But yeah,
well, I laugh because in his deck photo he has the pinhead in the main deck, but he's got another real Abyss in the sideboard. But he wanted to showcase that, which I appreciated. That was fun.
That's a nod. Cool. That's a nod to John. Brian, John has made about, 10 or 12 custom altars that are from the Arabian Nights comic books, and done some other things like that Hellraiser Abyss. And we're giving those out to our top semifinalists. That's
absolutely awesome. So getting back to the action at hand, Lucas is now untapping, drawing a card with 32 life. Is this game over already?
I think
Yeah.
it is. It's over.
Oh, how it comes back. It just doesn't, right? 32 is out of reach.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to do 32 damage.
Oh, look at this. He's strip mining his own land.
Is that just a flex?
I love
Wow. Wow. He stripped
What's
his
going
own
on?
hand.
Honestly, at a certain point, if you're, you got to just start playing lands. If you're Jack, you're just like, well, screw this, man. I'm done playing tax games. I'm just going to start bloodlusting and attacking you.
Well, he's going to come in and attack and hit with the bloodlust
this
here.
This is basically one turn of Ivory Tower. I mean, it feels futile.
Yeah. I think Jack has lost this game already, unfortunately.
Yeah, it just shows the power of the unrestricted Ivory Tower. It's so abusive in this format. It's nuts.
And in the
Even
modern
without
regular Four Horsemen, Brian, Ivory Tower is restricted, Sylvan Library is restricted, Greed is restricted, Dark Heart of the Wood is restricted, Strip Mine, Maze of Ith, Diamond Valley. You know, so many of these abusive cards are all restricted. But here, it's the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, so interesting. So you notice right there the discipline that Lucas has to not even play a land. He just throws a Kumbaj Witches in the graveyard. He says, bro, come at me. What are you going to do?
Yeah, he's just going to sit back and gain life.
Yeah, these are completely meaningless. He might as well just discard them in terms of the effectiveness against the relentless tower.
He needs Divine Offering.
Yeah,
Really, really bad.
And I guess he's just trying to keep his opponent's life total down a little bit. But Tower is essentially drawing a card every turn when you're trying to kill your opponent with 4 Bloodlust and 4 Chain Lightning.
It's so broken.
Which is really the only damage that he has. Yeah.
Now,
Broken.
he does have the one of Dust to Dust. So if he can come into a Dust to Dust, he can exile the tower and one of his own Ornithopters to get rid of that.
Yeah, that's true. Assuming it sounds like a circus is going on. There it is. He finally drew it. All right. So he staunched the bleeding after his opponent has gained approximately 18 life off the Ivory Tower. That's bad. That's really bad for a deck that's trying to kill with Land's Edge.
He might be able to do 30 as long as he doesn't gain any more life. But I think we're going to see some more life gain going on before this game is over.
Yeah, relatively soon. All right, so he just doggedly continues to avoid playing land because the Strip Mine Plateau problem means that his opponent could kill both of his lands during his upkeep to trigger land tax and at least start getting something rolling. Lucas just knows all he has to do is just sit here and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And eventually Jack has to continue to blink. He's got to do something.
Well, that Divine Offering does change things. Can Jack, does he have a shot at pulling this back into his grasp?
Well, I had a thought about this, honestly. What about the strategy? Let's say hypothetically there's a world where Jack brought in both of the Feldon's Canes. He realizes that he only lost the last game because he played Land's Edge and he got blown up by his own enchantment.
Well, he played a third land. That was what killed him.
Right, essentially, but he took lethal damage from his own enchantment. So what if his plan is to just deck Lucas with 3 Feldon's Canes?
Oh.
Lucas does not have access to 3 Feldon's Canes.
That's a good point.
Another Bloodlust slams home, dropping him down to 26 life.
Bloodlust number 3.
Number 3.
Oh, he's down to 26. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
There are a few variables in play right here, but it'd be very interesting to see what would happen if Lucas were to play a land in an Ivory Tower again. Whether or not we'd see Jack destroy his own land during upkeep to activate land tax, or whether or not he would opt to Divine Offering first and miss the opportunity to tax. I guess he could do it the following turn. But we'll see. I can see a scrub land over to the right in Lucas's hand, and you see he's just opting to discard a land. He does not want to put a scrub land into play. And I kind of agree with that plan. What do you guys think about that? Do you think there's any reason
it'll
to
just get
scrub land?
stripped if he plays a scrub? I agree. It's a
Are
smart
you sure
move.
it gets stripped? Or does Jack start land taxing?
Well, you're right. He could strip his own plateau and then land tax. I think he might want to wait till he has a double land tax in place to pull that maneuver.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's so crippling, right? He plays a second Strip Mine. Now he's got a slam Blood Moon here. No, I'm kidding. Just ridiculous. What a strange game. I see a Greater Realm of Preservation right now in
Lucas's hand. Yeah, you can kind of see his cards.
He's got a Millstone too, I think. He's kind of just content to just pass and pass and pass and pass.
He'll eventually come into another ivory tower.
Yeah.
You know, John, you and Philippe did a lot of work on the various versions of Tax Edge. You know, Brian, you don't know this, but Philippe Bizian, who's played with us since the very beginning.
Yeah, I remember him.
He's made it to the semis at least 4 times, and 3 of those times he's played Tax Edge, and he's never been able to clinch the win. He's had some very, very close games, and John worked on those early Tax Edge decks. John, what do you think about those early Tax Edge decks versus where Jack is now?
Well, like I said, I think those 3 Ornithopters would be a lot more effective if they were 1/1s. But, you know, the premise of his deck was different. He wanted to build a deck that had Kobolds in it, and he wanted to showcase those 0 drops, and so it's fine. He wasn't really trying to do the same thing, and his deck is like incredibly linear in that it has just 4 copies of everything. Like there's no shaving, there's no extra cards trying to be squeezed in. You know, we were trying to figure out like what's the right amount of 1-drops. Like, can we fit 16 1-drops in our deck in order to like maximize it so that we always have a guy poking in there?
Yeah.
Well, trying to do our land tax thing.
Right.
And, you know, we looked at all the 2-drops in the format and thought, is there any 2-drop that's even worth playing? And, you know, we tested out Repentant Blacksmith as a sideboard card, and we tested out Osai Vultures to have a flyer. But yeah, it's interesting because if you look at this deck in something like regular Old School or even in X-Point or whatever, like all the creatures that you would play in that don't exist in this format. And so you're really digging to try to find the pieces that you need. And in early for Horsemen, I feel like white was fairly shunned. Like white was not a color that really saw play hardly at all.
Except for Moat.
Try to, in control decks, you know, Moat was there and certainly wanted to try to use land tax. But like as far as playing like something like White Weenie, you know, it's just not, it's not there. And black too, you know, black was not really played a lot outside of its good enchantments, but you didn't really see a whole lot of black creature decks. And so even though the witches are good, we didn't see them hit tables for several tournaments because there were just better things to be doing in other colors.
Right.
I've got to interject here. I think that Jack just committed suicide.
I think so too.
I think he might want out. He needs to start working on that beer quickly because he just gave his opponent a way to kill him. Now at this point, his opponent, instead of discarding those lands into the graveyard, each one of those is going to be a shock.
I mean, maybe there's a
shocks later. He's just
maybe he
dead.
Played darts.
Wait, no. He did not shoot himself.
There you go. 19 to 26. Yeah, you're right, Brian. Now he can just sit there and just hold off.
I gotta wonder what the strategy is, other than just maybe desperation. Chain lightning or land tax number 2.
Well, when you brought up the milling idea, I thought, oh man, did he maybe even just take the land's edges out altogether? And he's like not even going to try to win that way. He's just going to try to win the other way. But clearly, he kept them and he played them. I can't fathom playing that early if you can't kill your opponent.
Yeah, exactly. When he played that early Feldon's Cane, I had a thought for a minute that maybe I was right, that he might have brought in 2 Feldon's Canes and he just drew the first one. And I was about to ask you guys whether or not you would play the second Feldon's Cane if you're Jack, to show your opponent that was essentially your strategy. And then he strip mined his own mountain. Why did he strip mine his own mountain?
I don't know. This is very confusing.
Yeah, it almost sort of feels like you build the deck and you account for particular matchups. You think about what you're likely to face. And so you can kind of understand what your plays would be. But in this bizarre matchup where the correct strategy from your opponent is to literally just discard forever, it kind of breaks your brain a little bit. You don't really know what to do.
It's really strange.
What if I just kill my own land? What happens then? Does that make the game better? And I don't think that it really does.
Lucas is just going to sit back here and draw lands and do damage.
Yeah. And I don't know how this stalemate changes. He can't get rid of his own land's edge. Playing a second one just overwrites it. And he can chain lightning him a little. Okay, his winds of changing. I wonder if he's going to. He probably hit him with some more damage here.
Yeah. So if Lucas has lands in his hand, he's going to do a bunch of damage right now.
Yeah, I imagine it would make perfect sense. It just speeds the clock up. You do get to redraw, but it looks like he's just been holding lands this whole time. And so he'll throw probably 8 to 10 damage in his opponent's face and draw 2 cards and just continue the clock. He does have 7. Okay, he's not opting to do that. I did see at least 3 lands in his hand, so I'm not sure why he didn't. At this stage in the game, what's more valuable than land? Do you think that his plan is to play a land in an ivory tower? But that would be ridiculous. But if he plays land in ivory tower, his opponent goes, during my upkeep, strip mine both my lands, draw 6 lands out of my deck, and deal a ton of damage to you. Deal 12.
That's a good point, Brian. Yeah, so, there is a way out for Jack here if Lucas makes an error.
Yeah, if he plays a land, and this is all the more reason why you might want to actually leave the second strip mine and the second land in play, because there's a chance that your opponent might just not quite understand that 2 strip mines plus 2 land is 0 land. If he wants it to be that way, he might actually screw up.
Yeah.
But if Lucas never plays anything, doesn't he eventually just get decked?
Oh, right. Are you talking about Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, he'll eventually deck out. I mean,
especially if Jack has sideboarded in his extra Felden scans.
Well, I think he'll just win with the Land's Edge before then. He only needs to draw 9 more lands and he wins.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's no life gain other than the
Chain Lightning.
He has Divine Offering.
Yes, Spirit Link and Divine Offering, but there are not a lot of good targets to Divine Offering right now. 4 of the 5 artifacts cost 0.
Oh, look at this. Lucas is stripping the strip.
Yeah, so he kills his own land in response. Why? Why on earth does that make sense to do?
Well, now he can just sit there and force Lucas to play a land.
Well, no, Lucas is just going to deal 2 to his face over and over and over again.
It's a losing proposition.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like, I'll show you, I'll kill my own land then.
This is such a bizarre match.
Who could imagine the guy that's going to win the event very likely has nothing in play on whatever this is, turn 13 or something?
Except for a Fountain of Youth.
And he's favored.
Yeah, this is a crazy, crazy, crazy matchup. And Brian, you know, if you go to 4horsemenmagic.com,
yeah, and
you click on the current tourneys, and go to Tournament 21, we have all the deck photos. There are some phenomenal decks. I mean, this is one of the most impressive tournaments we've ever had.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm just going to comment on the game real quick. So you'll notice that those aggressive strip mining of his own lands has unlocked Lucas's mana. He was able to get a plains down safely around 2 land taxes and play an ivory tower now. So there's no way for Jack to kill off the ivory tower short of playing a second land here. And he's used all of his strip mines. Why did you do that?
What he really needed here was Artifact Blast to counter that shit.
Yeah, he needed to have an Artifact Blast that turn to deal with it. So he has finally Feldon's Caning, and he's going to put all that direct damage back into the deck. And he's casting Winds of Change. I don't know how many cards he has in his hand.
Yeah. You'll
notice right away that Lucas is happy to reshuffle. That's 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, not opting to throw any land at his opponent, which makes perfect sense because now he's got Ivory Tower. That's an insurmountable problem for his opponent to solve, and he must get it right now. I wish I knew how many cards Jack has in his hand right now. I guess we can probably watch when he draws. Looks like a glass of water versus a glass of beer.
He hasn't touched it. He hasn't touched it, Brian. I don't think he's very happy right now. He's not interested in drinking that beer.
Yeah. So 6 cards. That actually does give him some hope.
Okay.
In terms of what he really needs to draw right here, which is the Divine Offering.
Okay. The red dice is Jack's hand. The green dice is Lucas's hand. There we go.
All right. Cool. Yes. Thank you for the clarity. All right. So upkeep. Game 2 goes to 22. And we know for sure 100% that he will not play a second land. No chance. But he may have another Ivory Tower here, or he may not opt to play it. He may play a land tax as well, which would change the math a lot more in his favor. Okay, so this looks like checkmate to me. The only way that he can kill the Ivory Tower is to Divine Offering it, which means
Right.
there's a second land in play. So land tax will trigger with the Land's Edge in play, and we know where that leads. 3
That's
turns
right.
till dead.
Chain lightning to Lucas's face there, bringing him to 19.
Yeah.
But
But he
that's-
gains 2 right back. Goes back to 21.
Yeah. Well, at least the 4 Divine Offerings and perhaps the Dust to Dust are back in that deck somewhere.
Yeah, I want to see Lucas play a second land tax here. Just to go, he's tapping on that one right now. Makes me think he does have a second. He's got a second tower instead.
Even better.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny that between games we talked about the scenario of, oh, well, what if somebody doesn't have a land tax and they just each play 6 lands? That was never going to happen in this.
Yeah.
In this,
I told you guys they were gonna mulligan for Ivory Tower land tax type things.
Yeah, and it has definitely decided the game. Notice Feldon's Cane number 2 has come down. So he did sort of follow the advice that I suggested.
Yeah.
And brought in extra Feldon's Cane. That was his game plan.
That's right.
Why did he play Land's Edge? Come on, man.
I don't
You
know.
actually had a way to win. You could grind this deck out, potentially.
He could.
He's never going to play 3 lands, so he can't cast Underworld Dreams. And that means that you have forever to just run him out of cards. Okay, so he plays a land and strip mines his own to really, really lock this in. And now land tax is just going to feed him endless cards.
Jack needs a strip mine here to strip his own mountain.
Yeah. You ever think you would say that?
He does not want Lucas land taxing. He's gonna land tax and double Ivory Tower, gain life. It's gonna be just curtains for Jack.
Winds of change. I'm sure he's completely fine with that.
So Brian, in some of the other matches,
What's that?
in some of the other matches, Brian, some of the other decks, there was a Winds of Change, Chains of Mephistopheles deck that absolutely wrecked me and like 6 or 7 other players.
Oh god, that enchantment is so horrible to play
It's
against.
so brutal. On
And
turn
the fact
3,
is, it's not an enchant world either for some reason, so you can stack them up.
that's right. And Tim Kincaid, who's been crushing it in 4 Horsemen, and also 7 Point Singleton and X Point, extremely strong player. He was playing a Chains deck, Chains of Mephistopheles and Winds of Change. He didn't make it into the semifinals. He did make the top 8 though.
That's really, it's really cool. Chains of Mephistopheles has been one of those cards that's kind of been in the background of old school Magic forever. It was printed in, I guess, spring or whatever of 1994, early summer of 1994 when Legends came out.
That's right.
And it always seemed to have all of this potential. I had it played against me a lot of times, but I had access to Disenchant, so I could usually deal with it. The card has so much just potential to destroy fun and hopes and dreams.
Right.
So I'm glad it's found a place to shine in 4 Horsemen, because it never really quite lived up to the hype in the older formats. I think just Disenchant being everywhere and good counter magic kind of reined the card in and just prevented it from getting to that top tier performance. All right, 3 land coming into Lucas's hand. That's 6 more damage. I would say the writing is fully on the wall here. I just literally don't think that there's any outs. There's no way left to win the game. There's no way to counteract the life gain. Is there any hope at all remaining for Jack, short of downing that second beer really quickly and conceding?
Yes, there is. Plateau, Plains, Dust to Dust.
Plateau, Plains, Dust to Dust. Can he survive the land tax barrage in the meantime? That only deals with one problem. The life gain is not the problem. The problem is the land tax that's dealing 6 damage to him every turn.
Fair point. What do you think, John? Is it over for Jack?
it's over. It's over.
You know, what's interesting is going into this match, I thought Jack was favored, but Lucas has played so masterfully.
Yeah, but Lucas has won both games by using his opponent's win condition. Like, it's so strange that he's just slammed that Land's Edge on the table both games.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't get it.
The idea being you only deploy that card when it's lethal. Playing it any time other than when you have lethal is a very, very likely a mistake. And to play it in the situation that he was in when he was in a stalemate, an effective stalemate that he was losing because his opponent had control over the land situation and he didn't, meant that he was effectively conceding. All right, I think this is going to be the last turn of the game. I think he has quite a few more lands in his hand. We only saw 1 bombardment last turn after taxing. So his hand size is 10. Huge life boost, yeah, up to 41.
Jesus.
Draws a card, and I imagine that's probably going to be 6 basic lands. We'll see. 1, 2, 3, 4,
He's really like
5. GG, keep on going, man. And that's it, guys.
Wow.
With a flourish and a bombardment of plains and swamps, Tournament 21 of 4 Horsemen is over.
Jeez.
The Wild West has been won, and Lucas has prevailed. What a cool match. What cool decks, honestly. It's really neat to see how this format has evolved. I can't say that I'm surprised by the result. When you showed me the 2 deck lists earlier today, when I just had before I had an opportunity to review them, I looked at it and I said, I do not understand how this red-white deck can win. The black-white deck has just simply too many tools to handle it. It can handle all the pressure, the 4 Ivory Tower. It's really just insurmountable, and not terribly surprised to see that came to pass.
I'm super happy for Lucas. He's been a huge supporter, and like he's really put in the time and dedication to get where he's at now. And I love that he's playing, a format a deck that's out of his wheelhouse. I love that he, took it all the way to the finals and won. And Tax Edge is just always the bridesmaid, never a bride in this format.
There's always Tournament 22, guys.
I would love to play my version of Tax Edge against Lucas's deck and see if I can squeeze a game in, but certainly it's not favored.
One of the things, just as a final thought, I think probably one of the reasons why the Tax Edge deck is the bridesmaid strategy is that everybody who's played this format a fair amount is really, really seasoned in the land tax game.
Yeah.
And it tends to be one of those cards that beginners and even amateur players don't really quite understand. And they often will play into a situation where they get screwed by it. But veteran players know exactly how to deal with the card, and they have a malleable strategy. They know when to commit lands and when not to, and how to really dance around the card and how to exploit it. And that means that just everyone is prepared for the archetype. And land tax goes in lots of decks. It doesn't just go in tax edge decks. So when it goes in the decks that have a more robust strategy, like black-white control, the card is just better.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And, we have seen Arabian aggro decks. We've seen green-red aggro decks. We've seen green-red-blue. We have not seen a lot of black-white, right, John?
Well, Tim Kincaid played a black-white control deck in Tournament 14, and it was the first time that somebody new had come in and just cleaned house. I had won the previous tournament, and Tim and I played in the finals, and it was pretty funny because he was trying to kill me with Underworld Dreams, and I kept bouncing him with my time elementals, and we were kind of playing this game of, can somebody get that damage in? But he kind of pioneered the black-white prison deck, and it's come a long way in this format. I mean, certainly Lucas's build here is pretty fun. In the Wild West, you get to really exploit, having 4 copies of all those restricted cards. But if you go back on the website and look at Tim's list from Tournament 14 that has a more modern lean to it as far as the banned and restricted, it's still a pretty viable strategy.
I believe it. And it's just really cool to see that even with the Wild West throwback and all the other options available because of the uncurated banned list and restricted list, that none of the big boogeymen of the format really were represented in the final. No mana drains, no workshops, no Sylvans, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just kind of old-fashioned ingenuity, and it was a real pleasure to both watch these decks unfold and to do the commentary with you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this, and I would love to do it again at a future event.
All right. Thanks, Brian. And thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. And with that, we will wrap up the video tonight. Lucas Santos, Underworld Prison versus Jack Clegg's Edging Kobolds. 2 Australian players brought into the top finals match for 4 Horsemen Old School Magic. Lucas pulls it out with a 2-0 win and is our 4 Horsemen Old School Magic Wild Wild West champion. Congrats, Lucas. Thanks for joining us. Brian, thanks for joining us. John, appreciate you guys commentating. And with that, we will wrap up the video for tonight. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah, of course. Happy to do it It was really fun joining you guys. Congrats to Jack and to Lucas, and I will see you guys for the next one. Have a good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Greetings, old school magic players, and welcome to the Four Horsemen.